What's up, everyone? This is Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com, doing another great interview. Today, I'm so fortunate to have my good friend, Dan Solomon, Chief Olympia Officer. Dan, welcome.
Christian, thanks for having me. You've kept real busy, I'll tell you. Whenever I attend an event, I always see you there, and you're interviewing everybody and doing great work covering the NPC and the IFBB Pro League. So it's good to be on your program.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This Zoom thing is amazing. I used to use Skype. This is like a game changer, so I'm real excited. And again, I love covering the shows. I love contest coverage, and I definitely appreciate you hooking me up last year with Olympia press passes. That was huge. Thank you.
Well, you did a good job covering it. We're looking forward to having you back again in December.
Thank you so much. And again, the Olympia it's an institution. It's the crown jewel of physique-based sports. It doesn't matter what new shows come out, what old shows are around. I mean, you are the best when you win the Olympia. There's just no way around that. The only road to the Olympia is the IFBB Pro League, and the only road to the IFBB Pro League is the NPC. So, I mean, it is again, an institution. And, moving to Planet Hollywood, I think is such a game changer. I mean, the theater, the Zappos Theater, the Planet Hollywood Hotel itself, nothing against the Orleans, but I mean, I really think it's a game changer.
It's a game changer for a lot of people. It's a game changer for the athletes because it's the caliber of stage that they need to be spotlighted on. It's the type of production that Tamer Ogindi and Martine and Caden and our production team can really just do some spectacular things. And all of that stuff kind of went into this process. Every time you walk into a hotel or a venue or a convention center, of course you look at the space, but you look at how that space directly can impact the caliber of the fan experience tied to your individual event. And Planet Hollywood has just so many opportunities and ways for us to really create something very unique for the Olympia attendees, for the athletes, for our exhibitors and sponsors, and also for the media. So I think people are going to really feel a big difference. And the fact that it's happening right in the middle of the holidays, it's going to be a special time of year. It's certainly something I think we all deserve. Everybody has gone through a lot, and I know a lot of your viewers are out there right now, and they're just kind of trying to decide when they're going to get to go back to work or when they're going to get to go do some things that kind of feel normal again. So we're focused on December. It's still a good 7 months away. We got a lot of work to do, but Planet Hollywood is going to be a tremendous home, and our new owner, Jake Wood, and our entire team have just really come together, and I think everybody's going to like what's going to happen this December.
Absolutely. And, even though the Orleans was only about a 5 or 10 minute drive away, the fact that the event's going to be on the heart of the Las Vegas Strip is also a huge game changer as well. And the fact that you're having it as far out as possible is also because we're talking about the best of the best in the world. They need access to gyms. I mean, they can't do it with water jugs and elastic bands. So, 7 months out gives them the opportunity to hit the gym, get their nutrition right, get with their contest prep coaches. I mean, it really is. I mean, you guys really, and it was a bold decision. I mean, a very, very bold decision. Other events, and again, a lot of folks are talking about Athleticon and such, and, that of course is going to be a great show, but as we all know, it's been postponed for 2021. I don't think the Olympia really had the luxury of doing that. As I said, it is the crown jewel. It is an institution. And I'm just so happy that you and Jake and your whole team decided that 2020 it would happen.
Well, every event has its own unique circumstances. As the Olympia, we are regarded as the world championships of the IFBB Professional League, and the event is symbolic and significant in a very unique way. The entire contest season leads right into the Olympia. It's the grand crescendo of the bodybuilding year and fitness year and so forth. So for us, we were going to do everything possible we could to try to figure out the safest, most significant and robust way to do our Olympia experience. It was very important for many, many, many people. It goes so far beyond my office here. It goes to parts of the world where people throughout the fitness industry lean on the Olympia for its commercial value. Athletes lean on it for all the various things that it brings to their worlds. And certainly the fans look forward to it every year. And it's a tradition. I know you've talked about that. You and I have had those conversations. The Olympia is very much a tradition. It's something that has occurred this year, will be 56 years. And we really felt the responsibility to do whatever it took to figure out a pathway to not just put on the Olympia, but put on an Olympia unlike any we've ever put on before. Now, you mentioned Athleticon. They decided to postpone till 2021. They're in a unique situation. First of all, Athleticon hadn't even gone on sale for tickets. So that made it really easy for them to cancel and push to 2021. Also, it's a first-year event. And when you're a first-year event, you kind of have the luxury of not having any real expectation or tradition. And for them, I think it was an easy choice to move to late 2021. I know we're all looking forward to it. We'll all be there. I know Danny and Dwayne have a lot up their sleeve, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. But I guess that's not until October 2021 now, and I know we're all looking forward to that. But every event is uniquely positioned. I know some events have tried to reschedule, some events haven't, and I think they each have their own fiscal reality, their own scheduling reality, their own circumstances. And I know for the Olympia, we knew what we had to do, and we're planning to do just that.
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of folks need to understand too, that all of the events are working together. I mean, it's all part of, you know, the bigger picture of the Ivy Pro League. Everybody's working together. And as you pointed out, you're very excited about Athleticon, as am I. But of course, we can't help but see what happened at the Arnold, you know, when this whole pandemic was just like unleashing. And, you know, we saw like the Arnold Amateur that had no audience. You know, some of those competitors went to sleep at night not knowing if you're going to compete the next day. And that's nothing against the Arnold. They had no way of knowing what was going to happen. But again, this is why I think that it's so great that you guys pushed it out as far as possible. And really, you know, you're putting safety, you know, at the foremost, which is really, really important. Speaking as far as when you took over the reins of the Olympia as Chief Olympia Officer, you know, I've seen other interviews where some folks are, you know, sort of offering themselves up to do what you do, which I think they'd have their work cut out for them, because again, you, unfortunately, we had, you know, the issue with Sean, which I hope gets cleared up. You know, your predecessor. Now, I like the analogy where, you know, where an outgoing president of the United States leaves a letter in the desk for the incoming president, and there's like this whole, you didn't have any of that. You know, you basically had to hit the ground running, I should say. And you didn't really have like that transitionary period. You didn't, you know, and I don't know if you want to discuss the circumstances, but the fact is that you hit the ground running. You had a sort of a mainstream media tabloid type catastrophe on your back. You made it all happen, and it was a huge success.
Well, you know, we did it very much as a group. And it's funny, you know, on one hand, yes, it can be very convenient to be able to carry forward, you know, a group that has been around for a long time. And we were able to retain some key members of the staff that have been vital to our transition. But sometimes things just need a fresh set of eyes, a fresh look, a different energy. And I think those folks who have been to the Olympia for many, many years felt that the Olympia, as much as it had grown and as much as it had evolved into a next level experience, it had reached a point, and you know, that was the opinion of ownership and the opinion of some folks in various places, that the Olympia needed a bit of a refresh. And we were able to do it to a small degree in 2019, overcoming a lot of circumstances. We were able to, you know, kind of revisit and revamp the stage production. We were able to increase prize money. We were able to do a whole bunch of experiential things to try to provide some different energy throughout the convention center, throughout the arena, and so forth. And we were really proud of the turnout that we had. Overall, it was a very positive weekend. But I'll be honest with you, this year, as a result of the COVID-19 situation, a lot of our long-range plans to sort of take the Olympia to a whole nother level have been expedited, because unfortunately, these circumstances sort of forced us into a different lane. And I'm a big believer in, and I know I've mentioned this on a couple other interviews, but I'm a big believer in turning lemons into lemonade. And I really felt that we had a situation here where we could sort of take these circumstances and it would lead us down a road where we would get to this year's Olympia when we're at that Zappos Theater inside of Planet Hollywood, right in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip, crowning champions, and, you know, sort of in a sea of just epic production value and all these things that we have planned. And I feel like we're all going to look at each other and we're all going to say, you know what, it hurt for a while. It was a tough place that we were all in, But because of all of that, look where we ended up. We ended up creating something that we could have only dreamt of creating. And I really hope that same sort of thought process goes to all parts of life for everybody. We're all going through some things. A lot of people are being forced to have to revisit their jobs, revisit their career path, revisit their personal life. And I know that a lot of people are stuck home right now, and they're really, exploring themselves, and they're exploring all the different choices that are in front of them. And my hope for everybody, not just the Olympia, is that everybody comes through this in a much more resolute, positive, forward-thinking way. And I know that was the approach we took with the Olympia. But getting back to your question with regard to prior leadership and so forth, I can honestly tell you that, like most things, it needed to happen. It was one of those things where we needed to be uncomfortable for a while. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Sometimes you have to get uncomfortable to really see a real change. And as far as other folks, I know you had mentioned the first question you asked was other folks chiming in and providing their opinions. We love those. Look, bottom line is this. Every person who's ever been a football coach in the history of their life, they watch a football game and they say, hey, if I were coaching this team, here's what I would do. So I appreciate it. I see the interviews. I see folks who used to run contests and they talk about wanting to, this is what they would do if they were in a position to oversee the Olympia. The good thing about me and our team and Tamer and Jake, we're all very open to the ideas of the fitness and bodybuilding community. We take the feedback seriously. It's one of the reasons why after 15 years, we wanted to pull the event back to the Las Vegas Strip, because we know that's what folks want. We listen. When I took over, I had meetings with 50% of the athletes who compete at the Olympia. There's about 180 IFBB pros. I scheduled calls with almost half of them. And on those calls, I sought out feedback and opinions and insight. What have you enjoyed? What are some of the things that you feel like need to improve? And we kind of went through it all. And sometimes you can only hit reset if you're forced to. And I think it was very much needed. And I think people are going to really start to see some significant improvements, as we move forward.
Absolutely. And again, I think that is something that you really brought to the table. I mean, of course, stage production is great and online marketing is great, but the fact that you actually reached out to the athletes and asked them for their input directly as a chief Olympia officer, that is quite possibly bigger than anything, because I mean, it really makes them feel like they have a say in the direction of the event. And it also makes the event better, that much better, and again, nothing against the Orleans, but being in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip, I mean, that's going back to the Mandalay Bay days. I mean, that's what the fans want. That's what the athletes want. And so that's great. And this Olympia, the retirement of Dexter the Blade Jackson, I mean, the winningest, most competitor ever, Mr. Olympia, 9-time Arnold Classic champion, the return of women's bodybuilding. You got, Brandon Curry defending his first Olympia title, Kamal defending his first 212 Olympia showdowns. I mean, it's a really, really big Olympia. It's
a big one. This is really one that if you go to the Olympia this year, you can go and you can experience the final competition of Dexter Jackson's illustrious career. You get to witness the return of Flex Lewis, this time to the big Mr. Olympia stage, and have him take a run at those $400,000. You have opportunities to witness the return of some of the greatest fitness Olympia competitors of all time, like Oksana Grashina and Adela Garcia coming back to compete against Whitney Jones. There's just so many things. And then, of course, the uncertainties surrounding a couple other all-time greats, like, what will Phil Heath decide to do? And there's a whole bunch of scenarios out there that are going to make this run up to the Olympia extremely interesting. And I will tell you, it is my feeling that when the dust settles and we get locked in and we kind of know who's doing what, I would not be surprised if this is as interesting and as good an Olympia lineup as we've had in a very, very long time. And we're anxious to see how it comes together. We have a pretty good idea how we think it's going to go, but we'd like to allow people to, control that timeline. We'd like to respect the athletes and their decisions. So we will monitor that process, and I'm sure you, Christian, and others will report that information. But you're going to have a really good lineup this year. And I know Brandon Curry is not messing around either. Brandon Curry has read all the posts. He's heard all the commentary from people who have said he's a one-hit wonder, that he's not good enough to be, a Mr. Olympia. He's heard all of that stuff, and you can be sure that really drives him. And there is a better version of Brandon Curry that I anticipate is going to show up this year. And when it does, is the lineup going to be good enough to take Brandon Curry, the champion, out? I don't know. But you can be sure guys like William Bonac and Flex Lewis, and assuming Big Robbie makes it to the Olympia this year, and Hadi Choopan if he can get over there. There's just a lot of talent, and it's going to be extremely interesting to cover for you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And actually, Abdullah assures me that Brandon's going to be very, very tough to beat. And in fact, invited me to go to Oxygen Gym. So I've never been to Kuwait, but I mean, who knows? I mean, get some Olympia prep coverage would be really, really cool. But, speaking of some of the names that you mentioned and just in general, had a question about a concept. We've heard it in the past, relative to maybe some competitors wanting a booth as a concession. Now there's some speculation that some competitors might want guaranteed money just to compete. I would think that such a concept would get shot down immediately. But what in the words of Sadiq Faruqi, what say you?
So you are referring to the concept of paying athletes to compete at the Olympia? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but it's something that I've been hearing that certain athletes demand it to just get on stage.
So, I will tell you this. I personally have never had an athlete call us up and demand payment to compete. So I can tell you in my role overseeing the Olympia, I've never received that phone call. So that's the first thing. However, if you're asking about the concept as a generality, look, the Olympia has been around for 56 years. And it is what it is for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons is it represents the most coveted, most esteemed prize and title in the sport. If we were to go ahead and start paying athletes to compete, just to walk on stage, what that would do to the integrity of the overall competition. If other athletes got wind that their competitors, their rivals on stage were receiving checks just to be there, it would have a profound impact on the perception of the judging. It would have a profound impact on the perception of overall athlete comparative value. And it's a very slippery slope. Now, we always try to provide as much value to athletes as possible in many ways. Of course, the Olympia, we also own and operate Muscle and Fitness magazine. All the various social media channels that go with that through Flex and Muscle and Fitness Hers, those are still thriving social media channels that have a grand total of something like 17 million followers across all their platforms. And so we try to do what we can to provide as much visibility and opportunities that extend from the media as we can. But we have no plans on writing checks for athletes to compete in the competition. And this past year, the 2019 Olympia, we kind of demonstrated that you don't need to. Now, the Olympia, like anything else, is a business, right? I mean, obviously, these things are run like the Super Bowl or the World Series. These things are run from the standpoint of trying to not lose money. And Jake Wood, our owner, does not want to lose money. Our prior ownership, AMI, did not want to lose money. So you have to be somewhat prudent in the choices that you make. And this past year at the 2019 Olympia, you were in the building. Christian, how was the crowd in the building at the 2019 Olympia on Saturday night at the arena?
It was packed. It was absolutely packed. And everybody was just like floored. I mean, it was really something that I had, it was my first Olympia. I've been to plenty of other shows. I have never seen that.
Right. So the arena is packed. And as it turned out, 3 or 4 of the more popular bodybuilders in the world, for their own unique reasons, were not in the lineup, just for a variety of reasons. Each one had their own circumstance. But in spite of that, the building was still packed. And obviously, we want all these guys in the competition. We want to have the best lineup. We want to put on the best show for the fans. But if you're focusing from a business conversation, there is very little case to be made to justify writing a check to an athlete to sell tickets when the building is full, because people want to see the crowning of the best in the world. And the Olympia has proven that to be the case. So it's a real tough conversation to have with anybody who is demanding a check to walk on stage. No other events do it. And what people also don't realize is the Olympia is the only event that not only do we give away something close to $1.5 million, which is infinitely greater than the second highest prize purse in the world. But we also take about 180 IFBB professional athletes and we fly all of them into Las Vegas. We pay for all of their hotels. Those bills are significant. No other event does that. So when you add up the prize money and you add up the flights and you add up the hotel and you add up all the other things that go in the per diems and all the things that go with us bringing all of those athletes in and doing what we do, coupled with all the stage production and all the other things that we spend money on, it makes it extremely challenging to justify writing individual checks for athletes to compete when there's no event in the world that is doing the things that the Olympia is doing. And that's not a shot at any other event. These events all uniquely operate given their own business realities. But you can be sure that what the Olympia spends on its athletes through prize money, through flights, through hotels, through per diems, it is millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you open up a real can of worms if you start contemplating writing checks to individual athletes. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I know some athletes might feel otherwise. Some fans might feel otherwise. There's certainly something to be debated on this topic, and I'm guessing that it will continue to be debated. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, I just want to reiterate again that I think it's ridiculous, but I did hear it. We did talk about it off camera, and the single biggest response that you gave my heart was with the most was the fact of the integrity of the event. You can't do that because, again, you have to treat all the athletes the same, and that's number one. Number two, the Mr. Olympia is the crown jewel. And like you pointed out, 3 or 4 of some of the biggest names were not there, and the Olympia was a huge success. So the Olympia doesn't need any particular athlete to guarantee its success or its growth. That's number two. And number three, as you pointed out, I mean, it wouldn't make financial sense. I mean, people don't realize how much money you guys are putting in by flying people out, putting them up at the hotels. I mean, that's a lot of money, and at the end of the day, it's also a business. You need to make a profit, I hope, right? So, I mean, but I couldn't agree with you more, but it is something that I heard, and it's something that I've heard over the years, but especially this year, and no names, that's not important. But what I do want to say also is, again, how great it is to have a fan of the sport of bodybuilding owning the Olympia. Again, nothing against AMI or David Pecker or anyone there, but Jake loves bodybuilding. You love bodybuilding, and that's got to have an impact on the way the event is run.
Yeah, our whole team does. As you mentioned, Jake is the real deal. He's an authentic lover of the whole fitness and bodybuilding lifestyle, male, female. He loves it all. And his track record certainly speaks for itself. He's done a ton over the years to create opportunities, to provide funding for a variety of events. When women's bodybuilding was on life support, he rescued it. Not only did he save it, but it's thriving now. There's plenty of opportunities, major events. The Rising Phoenix, the Miss Olympia is going to return this year to Las Vegas. And throughout the year, there's more and more opportunities for the female bodybuilders. But yeah, Jake is an absolute treasure in terms of providing real support coming from somebody who actually, like you just said, he lives it, breathes it, he trains, he lives the lifestyle, and he literally was a VIP ticket holder for years and years and years, and he showed up, and the minute he bought it, he had ideas that he came up with when he was a fan, just attending the show. It would be sort of no different than, if you were a fan of the Yankees and all of a sudden you own the team, and you get a chance to kind of put all your ideas to work. So Jake has been a lot of fun to work with, and but it doesn't stop there. In addition to Jake and I, Tamer El-Gindi, he's our producer for the weekend, and he's a IFBB professional bodybuilder, one of the best production guys in the business. He's the real deal. Angelica Nebbia, also an IFBB pro athlete. She's our Olympia coordinator. She works closely with our VIP ticket holders. She's very involved with many components of what we do, and she's also very entrenched in the industry. So we have a lot of passion. We have a lot of folks who really understand the aspects of being a competitor, of being a sponsor, of being an exhibitor, of being a fan. So I think to some extent, all that stuff, is starting to show itself in what we're putting out there, because we're trying to do things with a real connection to, all of those experiences.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because I'll even see on Jake's Facebook there, like he even eats like a bodybuilder. I'm like, he's eating like steak and asparagus. I'm like, where are the carbs? You know what I mean? But it's like, it's just very, very cool. The last thing that I want to ask you is dealing with a tragedy that just hit the sport quite hard, and it's the passing of Luke Sandow. And I was wondering if there was plans or if it's conceivable that at the Olympia, that Bob Ciccarello, who I consider to be the voice of bodybuilding, you and Bob started it all with Pro Bodybuilding Weekly, if he or somebody like him or like Sean Ray, for example, who is also a very, very prominent part of your team, he doesn't own, he runs Digital Muscle, and he does a fantastic job with that, which you used to own. If we could expect something like that, because I do remember when Dallas passed, and I want to give kudos to Cedric McMillan because he got up at the press conference and he took that moment of silence, and that was very, very cool. But I was wondering if maybe we could expect something more official from the Olympia for Luke Sandow.
Yeah, well, for starters, definitely thoughts to his family, his kids. What an unbelievable thing! What an unexpected thing when we all got those phone calls that Luke had passed. It was really not to be believed, because any of us who have been around Luke always felt such positivity from him. And I was with him not too long ago, and there was certainly no inclination that he wasn't in a good place. I don't really know the circumstances surrounding his passing. I've heard different things, but I will tell you that our heart goes out to all of his friends, his family, his fans. With regards to the Olympia and how we might acknowledge that, you can be sure that Luke's presence will be felt at the Olympia this year. We still have quite a bit of time. I think we'll have to kind of come together and figure out the most appropriate way to make sure that Luke's memory is properly expressed during Olympia weekend. And, these are things that, we always spend a lot of time thinking about, because usually, and sadly, in any industry, by the time you get to the end of the year, there's multiple people who pass each year, and it happens year in and year out for a variety of reasons. And I think so we always want to make sure that we're sensitive to all of it. But I can tell you right now that for me, it personally was very sad. I spoke to some folks who were very close to Luke, and we're all very disturbed that something like this would happen. And I always say it's really important for all of us to just keep tabs on each other. It really is, because I always say, until you walk in a man's shoes, you just don't know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're going through. And if he was going through some things that really had him in a bad place, it's heartbreaking to think that there wasn't a solution, or there wasn't an answer. But I just hope anyone out there who's feeling those things, or might have some thoughts like that, reach out, call a neighbor, call a friend. There's a lot of people that care about everybody, and it's important to channel that and make sure you stay plugged into some positive reinforcement, because the world is challenging right now. I just saw a stat the other day that said 40% of everybody in the U.S. who makes $40,000 or less have lost their jobs in the last 2 to 3 months. And folks who make $40,000 or less, those are the people who typically are living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it's a very disturbing statistic, and you can only imagine sort of the cause and effect as far as how it can affect your psyche and your emotions. And there's a lot of people right now that are really struggling, and they're out of work, and they're going through a lot. So I know we can talk about that all day, but the Luke thing was incredibly, incredibly disturbing, and you can be sure that in some way Luke's memory and legacy will be felt this year at the Olympia for sure.
Absolutely. And for the final question, segueing into that from this last one, because it's so sad about Luke, but I really want to commend you and your team as well on the use of Instagram and the Olympia Takeover series, because right now a lot of people are at home, whether it's because they're not working, they have to stay at home with their kids. A lot of schools have sent the kids home for the whole school year and forcing one of two or parents to stay home. So there's a lot of folks that have a lot of time on their hands. Some of them are getting depressed, some have anxiety, boredom, whatever. But the thing is that the Olympia Takeover Series has been huge, and really using Instagram to show all the stars and to interact with the people. Because that's another thing too. They're not just talking, they're interacting or reading the comments or answering the comments or including the audience in the program, and it's all free. And that's gone a really, really long way to kind of keeping the morale high, especially when shows are either postponed or canceled.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank all the athletes who have participated in that. We saw some great ones lined up. Kaden and Sophia and over in my office, they've worked very hard to put that program together. We have over 2 million followers on our Olympia Instagram, and we're very proud to use that platform to provide as much visibility to the athletes, but as well as some entertainment and value for the followers and the viewers and the fans. It's really something that we're starting to do more of. In the past, I think we've kind of underutilized our social media, and between Olympia and Muscle and Fitness, we really have an opportunity to connect with a lot of folks. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, just hats off to the entire fitness community. It's not just the Olympia athletes, it's trainers and coaches and weekend warriors. They're all putting out videos, and they're inspiring their followers and their friends and their neighbors, and they're conducting workout classes, and they're doing virtual programs, and they're doing it not for any money for the most part. They're just doing it just to try to provide value. And I'm just really so proud of the fitness industry, how it's kind of risen up and done its part to really provide to really be a positive, cathartic outlet for the world. I've said a few times that if this whole COVID-19 thing had occurred 15 years ago, you can be sure fitness would have been the furthest thing from people's minds. And now everybody's kind of used it as a vehicle to kind of get through all this. So I've said it before, and I continue to preach it. I'm just so pleased with the way our industry has come across during this. And I think those of us who work in this industry in any way, shape, or form, I don't think there's ever been a time where we should be more proud to be a part of the bodybuilding and fitness community, the business, the lifestyle, just because it really has presented in an incredibly positive way. So Christian, keep doing the good work, and let's keep getting the positive word out there.
Absolutely. And guys, please make sure to reserve your hotel rooms at Planet Hollywood. Get your tickets, make your travel arrangements, do it now. December 16th through the 20th, the 2020 Mr. Olympia. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining me. I really appreciate it. For Dan Solomon, Dan the Man Solomon, this is Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com.